Hello, this is Kiran Arora. I'm the Senior Data Manager at Rutgers DOMC. In this video, I would like to demonstrate how to print labels on Freezer Pro. I'm going to share my screen. Before I begin demonstrating how to print labels, I would first like to give you a little bit of overview of Freezer Pro. Once you log in, you see this screen. This is the home screen of Freezer Pro. On the left side, you have various freezers and boxes. In the bold, you see freezer groups. And when you click the gray arrow marks next to it, so basically the freezer groups have this sort of symbol, like folder symbol. And when you click on the gray arrow marks on the side, it shows you the contents of freezer groups. The contents of freezer groups include various freezers. And when you further click on the arrow mark, the gray arrow mark on the side, you see subdivisions of a freezer. So again, this is the symbol of a freezer group. This is the symbol of a freezer. An upward blue arrow mark is a symbol of, subdivisions. And if you come down to the very bottom, bottom of all the subdivisions, so these are different levels or subdivisions, you can say, of this freezer. You see that there is no gray arrow mark on the side of this box. Then that means that this is the lowest subdivision. And if you double click on the box, a plate appears like so, where you can store samples virtually and corresponding to a physical location in your lab. So in the case of Uganda, this is a physical freezer in the Uganda lab. And these two, the label printing station, are virtual freezers. Virtual freezers means that this is just temporary freezer space, or you can say storage space on Freezer Pro Cloud, where the DOMC staff uploads virtual samples, electronic samples, before enrolling the patients. And once the site staff receive physical samples from patients, they move the samples from here, the electronic samples from here, to a physical space in their freezer, and also corresponding physical freezer on Freezer Pro. So this is just a temporary space. The freezer printing stations are just temporary space to hold the electronic samples before they can be used. All right. I would also like to demonstrate an example from South Africa. In this case, Mr. Forgetful, Mr. Grumpy, and Mr. Mischief. These three are physical freezers in South Africa lab, and label printing station and shipment station are just virtual spaces on Freezer Pro to hold the samples temporarily. One thing also I would like to point out is label printing station is going to be unique for a study. So in this case, it's FEND adult TB. In the case of Uganda, it's unique for a study as well as the enrollment clinic. For FEND adult TB, there are two enrollment sites, or you can say screening recruiting sites for the study. One is Kasinye, another is Kirudu, and this is also represented in the patient ID nomenclature. All right, so I'm going to close this box. Another thing that I would like to mention that if you go to the lowest subdivision, in this case, this is batch 1 underscore PIDs underscore 1 to 50, you see a box. When you double click on the box, you can basically open multiple boxes simultaneously and use this tab to move across different, switch between different boxes. I'm gonna close this. So that's regarding the freezers and printing stations and freezer groups. One more thing I would like to point out is in the settings and preferences, when you go to barcode printers, the DOMC staff currently has set up printers, not really printers, printing templates, I would say, for different studies. In this case, we can see that FEND TB Adult has 2 printing templates set up. The difference between these two is the contents of the labels. These, so if you click over here and then click on the properties, you can see the contents of the labels. These sample types, saliva, isolate, UA swabs, sputum palate or PAX gene RNA samples for FEND adult TB are either stored in individual tubes in the containers they are collected, or only one aliquot is stored for these samples. So we don't need to have an aliquot ID for these sample types, to differentiate one aliquot from another, because only one tube for these samples are stored for this particular study. So the content of the label include a barcode. In this case, it's actually a QR code, the square one. And then it has sample name. For FEND adult TB, the sample name is consistent of PID and an abbreviated version of the sample type. I'll show you that in a bit. And then sample type. So it'll say, for example, if it is a sputum palate, it will be so sputum palate, and then name of the study as well is also part of sample type. So I'm going to close this. Let's look at the second barcode printing template that's been set up for FEND TB adult. Click on properties, and you can see that for urine, serum, raw sputum, and plasma samples for FEND adults TB, we have, these are the contents of the labels. So we have, again, a QR code, an aliquot ID in this case, which is the same as sample name. And then there's a dash, 1, 2, 3, 4, and how many ever aliquots there are to differentiate. So we have aliquot ID. And then we also have sample type, which is consistent of the name of the sample, which is like full name, not abbreviated. So name of the sample, and then it has name of the study as well as constituent of the sample type. So these 3 pieces of information will be printed, but it'll give you more than 3 pieces of information. I'll show you how in a bit again. So again, so the main concept over here is that these, even though it says barcode printers, these are not actual printers. These are printing templates. And when you're printing saliva, isolate, UA swabs, sputum palate, or PAX gene RNA samples for FEND TB adult, this is the printing template you would select. And when you are printing urine, serum, raw sputum, and plasma samples for FEND TB adult study, this is the printing template you would use. All right. Now going back to the boxes and freezers over here, I'm going to use again example of Uganda freezers. I'm going to use example of Kissimmee label printing station, and Kirudu would be similar to this. Just a copy of that for a different enrollment site. All right, so when you click on the gray arrow over here, so just it's very important to click on the gray arrow and not double click over here or single click over here, because the result of that would be different. So you see that right now you have an arrow mark in the place of cursor, and when the arrow mark it's converted into a hand symbol when you bring it closer to the gray arrow mark over here, that's where you would want to click to look at the different contents of this particular freezer. And so these are the two subdivisions, and looking further down into this subdivision. So for this label printing station, we have two subdivisions. One is label printing preparation station, and one is a printed label station. In the label printing preparation station, this is where the DOMC staff will upload electronic samples for label printing. So these aliquots or samples that you would see are not the actual samples that the lab has already received. You would see that for each of these aliquots over here, so there's 5 aliquots per person. For each of these aliquots, the volume is 0. That means that this is uploaded only for the label printing station, label printing purposes, where we are printing the barcode, we are printing the sample type, and we are printing the sample name or aliquot ID, depending on what sample we are printing. Okay, so when the DOMC staff uploads all of these samples, we upload this pieces of information, so which is sample name, which shows on the top, which is constituted of PID, as well as an abbreviated version of the sample name. So urine has abbreviated version UR, and because it's the first urine sample, it's UR1. And the sample type is listed here, and that is urine. And then also it contains the name of the study as well. And then you can see PID is also, pre-filled by the DOMC staff, and then the aliquot ID. So this is the 4th aliquot of sample UR1 of PID 3 UK 1001. So that's basically the structure of the different pieces of information you see. I'm going to go over the contents of Freezer Pro, like the database and what information is included later on in another video. Now I just want to focus strongly on how to print labels. So to print labels, what you do is you're going to select the well. I'm going to show you actually a couple of ways of printing labels. So one is you just select the well if you want to print a single label. You just left click, you bring the cursor on the well, left click on the well, and you see that it is highlighted blue. Then you go to the right and click on print barcode. As I mentioned earlier when I was giving you demonstration of printing templates, that you go to the template which corresponds to the study for which you're trying to print. In this case, it's FEND adult TB. And then you also go, choose the template that corresponds to this type of sample that you're trying to print. So I'm going to click on this arrow mark here and select this printing template, which is FEND TB adult, and that has urine in it, in its name. And then OK. you see another browser opens up that will show you what will be printed, like a QR code. Then this is going to be aliquot ID and sample name. Okay, so this is aliquot ID 3UK1001 UR1-1, which is right here for this sample. And this is the sample name, which contains the actual sample type name, which is urine, and then also name of the study. So I'm going to right click here, click on print, check over here how many pages are being printed, and is this what I intend to do, which is yes, I only wanted to print one sheet of paper. And then over here in the destination section, I will select the printer I want to use to print this label. You can see it also shows my regular office printer, the laser printer, and then I can save as PDF. I can do multitude of things over here, but this is the label printer I have for Freezer Pro labels. This is what I'll select and I'll hit print. So to print the contents of entire box, I will click on this X. So first you'll have to click any one of the cells which have some sort of sample or aliquot in it. And then I would click on this X button on the side. And then you'll notice that the contents of entire box are selected. Then I would click on this print barcode. And then again, do the same thing, select the study I want to print, which is FEND adult TB, and also the sample type, which is urine. I'll select this, okay. And you see another browser opened, and it contains all of the samples that I wanted to print. I right click, print. On the top, over here, you see there are 250 labels that I'm trying to print with this command. I would check over here once that yes, there are 250 vials that have samples in it on this box. So I am printing right amount of labels. And then I would select the printer, which is used to print labels. In my case, it's GX430T, and then hit on print and it'll print labels. So I would suggest that if you're doing mass printing, first click on one, print a single one, and then click on the X, select all. And if you want to deselect certain samples, either you have already printed those or you don't want to print those, what you would do is click on the Shift key on your keyboard and left click on the well that you want to deselect. So if I want to deselect this well 1A, the position 1A, if I want to deselect this, I would just hold to the Shift key on my keyboard and press left click on the mouse. You see, this is now deselected, and then you can again click on the print barcode button and print all of it except for that one. Okay. So when you're selecting the contents of the entire box, make sure that you have clicked once on a sample that has, clicked once on a row that has some sample in it, on well that has some sample. If you click, let's say on an empty well, and then click on the X button, you see that it'll just basically highlight all of the wells that are empty, right? So if you want to select all of the cells that are filled, then you would click on a well that has some sample in it and then hit the X button. So printing label is simple. You would just select as many sample as needed, and then just go to this right bar over here where it says button over here where it says print barcode, and then select the appropriate printing template, and then right click on the browser. Once it opens, right click on the browser, print, select the printer, and then give print command after checking it how many labels you are printing. It's really important to check how many labels you are printing again, because you can sometimes accidentally miss any labels, or if there are somehow you accidentally entered 2 over here, you would be printing double the amount of labels and it will cause a lot of wastage or confusion. So it's very important to check on the top the number of labels that you are printing, and then just checking back on the actual Freezer Pro well to make sure that you are printing the right amount of labels. I'm also gonna show you how to select different rows and columns, and also, select different samples individually. So one way of selecting is just select one individual sample by left clicking on it, and it's selected when it is highlighted blue in the back. Another way, if you want to select random samples, not random, I would say, like you want to print specific labels. So if you want to select, specific electronic samples on this well, what you would do is you would select your first sample regularly, hit the shift key, and keep on holding the shift key on your keyboard, and left click on the electronic samples you want to select, and that way you will be able to select certain samples. Once you let go of the shift key, it these samples are still selected, and right now I'm not holding the shift key, but if I want to again keep all of these samples selected and select further, let's say 3 more samples, what I would do is again press the shift key, keep it hold it for a while, and then select more samples that I want to select. So it does not deselect your previous selections. Okay, and then again click on the print barcode and you can print like that. All right, so that's how you select individual samples all over the box. If you want to select the entire contents of the entire row, you would click on this on the side. You see that initially you have like an arrow mark or 4-way arrow. When you bring it over here, if you click on this A, where there's a hand symbol, you see that the content of entire row is selected. I selected the content of the entire row, the C row, by left clicking on the alphabet over here. Similarly, if you want to select the content of the entire column, you would click on the numbers over here where you see a hand symbol. Okay, and yeah, so that's how you select the contents of the entire row, and then you can do the same to print different sort of barcodes. All right, so this is how you select samples in different ways, and then print barcodes. Before going, I'm just going to show you quickly what you would do to print barcodes for samples that doesn't have any aliquots. So one neat thing is over here that the naming convention over here also give you indication if you would see any aliquots for this sample type or not. Yeah, so this is sputum palette sample type over here is not further aliquoted, so you won't see any aliquot ID, and this is sample name, which is consistent of PID and abbreviated version of the sample type, which is sputum palette. So if you want to print this, the entire content of this box, I would click on basically a well that has a sample, electronic sample in it. Then click on the X on the top left corner, and then go to this barcode looking symbol over here. Left click on it, select the correct template. So earlier we used this template because we were printing urine samples that were aliquoted. Now we'll be using this template for the sputum palette. As you can see, sputum palette is listed here for Fanadol TB. So basically in the label content, we don't have any aliquot ID variable. We only have sample name variable. So that's the important distinction. Press OK, and then, well, printing is the same thing. You right click, print, check the number of labels you're printing. It's 50 labels, which corresponds to 50 vials that have samples in this box that I've selected. So yes, I'm intending to print 50 labels. You select the printer and print. All right. So that's how you print labels. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Bye.